Trinity Kids, welcome to our museum. For the next month, we're going to be looking at museum things, so come on in. I'm going to take a few minutes and show you the things that are on our exhibit table. We're starting with some grocery tins. In the old days, they didn't have plastic or cardboard that they would hold foods in. So as you can see, this one held crackers, this one held cheese, and so food came in various tins. Next to it, we have an old-fashioned coffee pot, perhaps one that your great-grandma or grandpa used. And so the water went in, coffee went in, and it could go on a stove or on a wood fire, and people would drink coffee, boil water that way. Next to that, we have some buckwheat. Buckwheat is a grain that was grown, it's in the rhubarb family, and it was used for flour as well. Next to that, we have a flour sifter. Often, flour would have bugs and other things in it, and this would allow a housewife or a grandma to put the flour in. The flour would come out clean, and it would keep all the bugs inside. Next, we have something called a sad iron or a flat iron. And housewives would have these, have a number of them. It's very heavy. It goes on the stove, it gets hot, and then the mom or the grandma or whoever would put the handle on it and then put it on your clothes to iron your clothes and make them flat. Finally, on this table, we have a kerosene lamp. And since there was no electricity in the old days, kerosene would go in the bottom. There's a wick, it's the white. The wick would be lit by a match, and then this globe would be put on top, and the wick would be adjusted to the right height, and it would give light to the room. So we can learn things like that. Come on over to the next table with me. And we'll start here with a milk or a cream can. So farmers would have cows on their farm. They would milk the cow, and then the milk would come into a cream can. The milk would be at the bottom, and all of the cream would settle or float up to the top. They would take the cream cans to the dairy. The dairy would then put the cream into small bottles, and they'd put milk into the larger bottles. And then either a driver with a horse and wagon or on a truck would bring them to your homes, and you would ask, I would like to buy 2 bottles of milk and 1 of cream. And you would use those up, clean them out at home, and the next week when the driver came by, you would return the empty bottles, and you would say, I would like to buy 2 more milks, and maybe this time you have company coming and you want 2 creams as well. And you would pay the driver, give him the old bottles, and he would give you new ones. This is a milk pail. There are 2 of them here, and a farmer would use these when he was milking his cows. We talked about tins, how advertisement was. This is Coleman's mustard, and oftentimes companies would put their logo on the sides of vehicles, and so here is a toy that, in this case, Coleman's mustard put on the side of this truck, and it was advertisement to get people to buy their mustard. This particular brass kettle actually comes from England, and this one is quite old. And people would have kettles like this in their homes for water, and you can see there's a steam hole here, so when it got hot, the steam would rise up. But this was another way of heating water. So if you needed a bath or you needed tea, the water would be heated, and then you would use that. And our last item on this table is an old wicker basket. So if you were going on a picnic, your mom, your grandma, your aunt, whoever would put everything you needed in the basket, and it would be closed. There are things here. This particular cloth is from a flour sack, and it says wheat flour, and they often came as cloth. And then your mom or your grandma or whoever would actually make clothes out of these bags that the flour came in. And so these have been made into handkerchiefs. They didn't have Kleenex, so you needed a handkerchief to blow your nose or whatever. And you can see how these have been cut. All right, come on to the front and we'll talk about another fella who was like a museum person. A museum person is a docent, and they explain things to you. God arranged for a docent to show us things too. Okay, the docent, or the person doing the explaining, was John the Baptist. He came, he wore camel's clothing, so to keep him warm. He ate honey, the things he could find, and here we've got some honey scoops. You notice it's got lines on it, so you would take the honey out of the pot, and if you twirl it, you can take it over to your bread, your biscuits, whatever. So John the Baptist ate honey, and he also ate locusts. Locusts are like grasshoppers, but with wings. And so can you just imagine something sweet in your mouth, but also that crunch from the locusts? So John is a docent. Just like I explain things to you at the museum, John is a docent, and he came to explain Jesus to us. All right, let's come over to this table, and I'm going to show you some more things that John showed about Jesus. In a museum, you often have items where you can press a button and it will talk. So, to start with, we're going to hear from the Gospel of John. Not John the Baptist, but the Gospel of John. So, I'm going to press the talk button.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
So John, the writer of the Gospel of John, is telling us that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And that Word came to be the light. And so that light was Jesus. And how Jesus came to be our light. So cool. I'm going to press the talk button again.
There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light.
So someone came to point us to the light. And we already learned that that was John the Baptist. He was our docent. He was the one who showed us Jesus. So cool. Okay, I'm going to push the talk button again.
The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human design or a husband's will, but born of God.
So John showed us Jesus, who is the light of the world, and Jesus is the one who allows us to become children of God. Isn't that so cool? Jesus lets us see God. Okay, let's do this again.
The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Isn't that cool? So John showed us Jesus, and Jesus shows us God. So if we see Jesus, we see God. I want to read another passage for you because there was a man who had a hard time understanding that. In John 14, verses 6 to 11, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father. And from now on, you know him and have seen you. The man's name was Philip. And Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough. And Jesus said, Philip, don't you know me? Even after I've been among you for so long, if you can see me, you have seen the Father. How do you say, show us the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father living in me, who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the work themselves. And Philip's going, how is that so? I have a mirror here that I want you to take a look at. Jesus is like that mirror. Looking at Jesus, Jesus shows us what God is like. So if we know Jesus, if we're looking at Jesus, he shows us what the Father looks like. And that is so very, very cool. So that's neat. John showed us Jesus. Jesus shows us the Father. And we too can show other people the Father. Come, let's take a look at this week's verse. Over here on this wall is where we've put our verse together for this week. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13. And the actions for that go like this. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13. So that was our lesson this week. One thing that we did is when you go to a museum, you go to the gift shop and you buy cards and things like that to remember from the gift store. On the back of the card is a little bit of information, and you can mail that card to someone. What we did this week is we had our own cards. So if you would like to draw a picture of something you learned about John or Jesus or one of the museum items, and then write about that and send it to someone, you can. All right? So thank you for coming. We'll see you next week, Trinity Kids. Bye.